how are you writing them? What's really going to go in there is they need to be brief. They need to be focused. They need to get all the fat needs to be taken out of them. And usually what I find is that you need to write them probably 3, 4, or 5 times. You write them first, you edit it down, then you give it to some friend who's willing to be ruthless with you. They're willing to just cut that apart. Okay. You want them to, tell you everything that is wrong with it. Not, oh, this is fabulous and you're great. No, because you need to then pare it down again in most cases. Remember that whoever's reading this, it's going to be the faculty members on the graduate program who are reading it. And whoever they are, they're going to have dozens, maybe hundreds of these to read. So you've got to make them so that they are interesting and brief enough that I can get through it. And I'm not like, oh my goodness, look how long this is. They'll often put limits to you and tell you the limits. And the reason is it's too much to read, hundreds and hundreds of them. If you have 200 people applying and you've got, let's say, 2 questions that you're asking for them, and each one ends up being a couple pages, it's overwhelming. You can have, hundreds and hundreds of pages to read, and you don't have time to read that much when you're looking at all the other information. So you want to be focused. The key here, I think, is capturing interest up front. Too often, they're really boring, and people will say things like, I knew I wanted to be a therapist, when I was really young. All my friends used to talk to me about their problems. No, don't put that kind of stuff. Don't put things like, I know I wanted to help the world. No, most places, especially in psychology, immediately go, oh no, this is, we want you to be more focused and thoughtful about this. This general, people like me, people talk to me, therefore I'll be a good therapist. I'm going to save the world. I'm going to make people better, all those kind of things. No, that's not what we're looking at. We're interested in your interests, what you're going to want to do. And yes, ultimately it will be to help people, but that can get a little bit too, I'm going to call it mushy. We don't want that. It's like, oh, somebody really has kind of pie in the sky ideas rather than let's stay focused about good education. But you got to capture people's imagination quickly. So let me point this out to you about kind of things that you do. This is an actual example. I've changed up the wording a teeny bit so it's not clearly from who it's from, but this is basically what happened. I had this one student. They had been a child protective caseworker. So they'd worked for CPS, Child Protective Services. They'd been a caseworker. And they spent a few years doing that and then went back to graduate school. So that was a really good clinical experience. And so buried in the middle of all of his personal statement about who he was, he had something to this effect. I used to work for Child Protective Services. I had a caseload of 40 families ranging from those with drug problems to those who sexually abused their children. That's basic factual stuff. It's true. Nothing specifically wrong with it, except it's not all that exciting. I sat down with him and I talked to him. I said, tell me about these cases. Tell me about what you've done. This seems like this is important. We need to hit them up front with this because that's what you're bringing to the program more than anything else is you have experience. Hit them with that up front. You can go back and talk about some of the other things about your education or about your theoretical orientation. You can fit that in later. Let's hit them with this because it's big and I want them to recognize it, but I want it to be interesting. So I want that person who's reading it to immediately go, oh, I want to read more. If you don't do that, and if the first sentence is really dull, oh, okay, well, this is boring, right? And you go, oh, and people will go, I never do that. I read the whole essay and I read everything. No, in reality, that's not what happens. In reality, we're all human beings and we go, this is rather dull. I don't know if I'm very excited by this. Now, I might have been excited because you had a ton of research experience and you'd published some papers or you had a lot of clinical experience, and I already knew about that. So the personal statement isn't as important to me, but that's not true in most cases. So this is what we ended up, and again, I modified this slightly, so it won't be exactly what he wrote, but this is what we ended up starting his whole personal statement off with. When I walked into the living room, there was no floor, just barren earth where the children played. A hole had been dug in one corner for use as a toilet. As a CPS caseworker, seeing such inhumane living situations was all too common. Now, see, I've captured this. I've painted a picture. Now, he's not going into great detail. People don't need to know he had a caseload of 40 families specifically. They are now, oh, wow, he has experience. And this is the kind of thing that ultimately you're going to deal with as a therapist or as a social worker or whatever it is. So this jumps out at you, grabs you. Then he went on to talk about what he did as a caseworker, how that fits into his view of human behavior, how that shaped his theory of behavior change, how that led to his research interests and so on. And he captured all of that. I will tell you, he got unbelievably great offers. And his other things were fine, but not great. This personal statement. And in fact, I know that this worked well because he got feedback that people really liked his personal statement. And I'm convinced that it's because we were able to rework it. By the way, it took 7 rewrites to get to the point where we had his letter the way that it needed to be. So plan on doing that. Don't write it at the last minute. You're going to process this over time.